The Good Samaritan, a story of love and kindness. In the ancient land of Judea, where olive trees dotted hillsides and stone villages clung to rocky slopes, there stretched a road known to all travelers, the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. This was no ordinary path. It wound through wilderness, descended through steep ravines, and curved around places where bandits might hide. Yet people traveled it nonetheless, for journeys must be made. On one particular day, as the sun climbed high and cast sharp shadows across the dusty earth, a man set out alone on this road. We don't know his name, but we know his hope. He was simply trying to reach his destination safely. His sandaled feet carried him forward, step by step, as the landscape shifted from the holy city's gates toward the distant valley. The road grew lonelier as he walked. The silence deepened, broken only by the whisper of wind through dry grass. And it was in this lonely stretch that danger struck. From behind sun-bleached rocks, robbers emerged like shadows. They surrounded him quickly, giving him no chance to run. They took everything, his money, his cloak, his dignity. But they didn't stop at robbery. They beat him until he collapsed onto the hard ground, then vanished, leaving the man broken and bleeding, half alive on the roadside. Time became strange for the wounded traveler. The sun burned overhead, then began its slow descent. His body ached with endless pain. He drifted in and out of consciousness, wondering if he might die here, alone and forgotten. Then, through the haze of pain, he heard footsteps. Someone was coming. Hope surged within him. The footsteps belonged to a priest, a man who served in the great temple of Jerusalem, who knew the holy scriptures, who performed sacred rituals. Surely, the wounded man thought, this servant of the temple will help me. The priest came closer. He looked. He saw the broken, bleeding man lying helpless on the ground. But instead of kneeling to offer aid, the priest crossed to the opposite side of the road and continued walking, his footsteps fading into the distance. Perhaps he feared defilement, or worried that robbers might still be near, or simply didn't want the inconvenience. Whatever his reasons, he left the wounded man alone. The traveler's hope dimmed, but still he clung to life. More time passed. The sun shifted lower, painting the hills in amber and gold. Then came more footsteps, another chance. This time, a Levite approached, another temple worker who assisted the priests, who knew the law of Moses, who could recite the commandments about loving your neighbor. The wounded man tried to signal his desperate need. The Levite came near enough to see clearly. He paused, observing the wounded man lying there, helpless and alone. And like the priest before him, the Levite chose not to stop. He too crossed to the far side and disappeared down the path. 2 religious men. 2 opportunities for mercy. 2 refusals to help. The wounded traveler felt hope dying within him. Darkness was gathering, both in the sky and in his fading consciousness. Perhaps no one would help. But then a new sound emerged, the steady clip-clop of donkey hooves, accompanied by the gentle jingle of travel goods. This traveler was a Samaritan. In that single word lay centuries of bitter history. Samaritans and Jews were enemies. Ancient disputes had built walls of hatred between them. They avoided each other and certainly didn't help one another. But something extraordinary happened. The Samaritan saw the wounded man and stopped. He didn't see an enemy. He saw a human being in terrible need, and his heart broke with compassion. Without hesitation, the Samaritan dismounted and knelt beside the injured stranger. His hands moved with surprising gentleness. He pulled out his own provisions, oil and wine, and used them as medicine, pouring them carefully over the wounds to cleanse and soothe. He tore strips from his own garments to make bandages, wrapping them tenderly around the man's injuries, stanching the bleeding. All the while he spoke softly, promising that help had arrived, that everything would be all right. When the wounds were dressed, The Samaritan carefully lifted the traveler onto his own donkey, supporting his weight gently. Then he walked alongside, one hand steadying the wounded man, guiding the donkey slowly toward the nearest inn. The journey was slow, each step measured to avoid causing more pain. The stars emerged overhead, bearing witness to this act of unexpected mercy. Finally they reached the inn, where lamplight glowed warm and safety waited. The Samaritan didn't simply deliver the wounded man and leave. He brought him inside, secured a room, and stayed through the night, watching over him, tending his needs, ensuring his comfort. He sacrificed his own rest and plans, all for a stranger who should have been his enemy. When morning came, the Samaritan prepared to continue his journey. But first, he drew out 2 silver denarii, enough to pay for many days of care, and placed them in the innkeeper's hand. "Take care of him," the Samaritan said. "Whatever he needs, food, medicine, rest, provide it all. If the cost exceeds these coins, I will repay you when I return." It was an open-ended promise, a commitment without limit, a declaration that this stranger's well-being mattered more than money or convenience. And then the Samaritan departed, back onto the dusty road. He left behind a man whose life he had saved, whose wounds he had bound, whose dignity he had restored, not because of obligation, but simply because love demanded it. Jesus told this story to answer a question. Who is my neighbor? The answer echoes through the ages. Your neighbor is anyone who needs your help, anyone whose path crosses yours at their moment of greatest need, regardless of who they are. The religious men knew the scriptures but missed the heart of mercy. The Samaritan understood what truly mattered, that love transcends boundaries, that compassion requires action, that we are called to be the help we wish existed in the world. This ancient story still speaks. It reminds us that when we encounter someone in need, we can stop instead of walking by. We can offer our hands instead of turning away. We can be the unexpected kindness in someone's darkest hour. The Good Samaritan teaches us that love is not merely a feeling. It is a decision, an action, a willingness to be inconvenienced for another's sake. It is seeing beyond difference to recognize common humanity. And so, as you rest tonight, let this story settle into your heart. Remember that kindness matters, that compassion heals, that one person's choice to help can change everything. In a world that often feels harsh, may you find peace knowing that love, freely given, generously shared, remains the most powerful force of all. Sleep well, knowing that mercy still walks the dusty roads of this world, and that you too can be someone's Good Samaritan.